Rule number 1 to increase your perceived value is to zip it. Here are red flag signs that you are not following rule number 1. You are racking up rewards with HR. Think of HR as having a reward system. And you have a punch card. Only once you've filled your punch card, instead of getting a free sub, your reward is more like a lovely parting gift. And remember the 3 strikes rule. If you have visited HR 3 times within a 90-day period, just make sure to have all of your personal belongings already either in your car or in your house. Because if you still have your job, it is a miracle. Red flag number 2. You have become a human workplace suggestion box. Are you frequently the one who is selected as the one to tell management something they need to hear? Because you're the only one with the guts to tell them. We all have labels. What are your labels? When your boss thinks about you and describes you to other people, or when your boss thinks about you, if he or she had to choose, do you think they would label you as a proactive problem solver or as a big mouth complainer? This is, by the way, taken from my new guide, The Rules. Click the link and subscribe to our newsletter. You'll get a free copy. Okay? And red flag number 3. Your reputation precedes you. When you get a new hire and they meet you, do they say things like,
"Oh, you're so-and-so. Oh, I've heard a lot about you. It's all good. It's all good. Don't worry. It's all good."
When people express that they've heard about you, this is very rarely a good thing unless they specifically say it. For example, if you come into a room and somebody stands up and says,
"Oh, Ms. Dixon. Hi, I'm so-and-so. It's nice to meet you."
Or if they say something such as,
"Oh, so you're the #1 producer. I've heard that you're going to be stiff competition."
That's a little different. And here's a bonus. Very rarely will people actually tell you what your reputation is if you don't use something like this, the 2-step repossess. Step number 1, be very specific. John, could you do me a favor? What do you believe are 3 words, let's say, that you've heard other people use to describe me? If you had to choose 3 of them, what do you think they would be? So I'm asking you to go into the past and think about words that you have heard other people use to describe me. Once you've given me those 3 words.
Well, I think maybe frank and a good communicator. I know that's 3 words. And polite.
Then you say, thank you. And you totally disregard whatever they just told you because it's all a bunch of nonsense and will not serve you at all. Step number 2, you say, well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Now, with that said, tell me, what do you think 3 words would be based on what you've heard in the past that would accurately describe the areas in which I could most improve? Or, thank you, John, and I appreciate that feedback. Now, with that said, tell me again, based on what you've heard, what do you believe 3 words would be that would accurately summarize my areas in which I could most improve? Once you've given people the opportunity to say what they think you want to hear, then when you ask a good follow-up question, again, based on the past and what you have heard other people say, what do you believe 3 words would be, because I don't want you to go on too long, that would accurately summarize the areas in which I could most improve? The odds of them then telling you what those words really are going to dramatically improve because you've already given them the opportunity to say what they think you want to hear. You accepted that, you said thank you, and then you went along to step number 2. That is how you will be much more likely to get the feedback that will be much more likely to serve you. And now here are 3 things that you can do to stop oversharing. If you believe maybe you have been, or if you just want to bring it up a notch, thing number 1, stop with the endless monologues. Watch how much you talk in conversations, and I'll give you the solution in a moment. Number 2, excessive apologizing. Watch how people who are not considered to be powerful always apologize when they ask questions. They'll say, I'm sorry, I just have one quick question. Excuse me, could I just ask? Do not do that, and stop just answering them. I'll give you the solutions again in just a moment. The 3rd thing that we can stop doing is being afraid of word gaps and using fillers. Saying things like, I think that, seal words that sound like you're a seal. We have to eliminate that. We need to be confident that those moments of silence when we communicate are, number 1, okay, and number 2, used effectively, because we should be using silence as a communication tool. So now let's get into what we can do, not just for that, but for all 3 of those things, so that we can start projecting the image of a more powerful communicator. You ready? Number 1, start using strategic silence. If you practice using silence as a communication tool, it's extremely effective when you know how to do it. When people ambush you, let's say in a meeting, that is on their schedule. And they put us on the spot to make it more difficult sometimes for us to respond, and they know that. Just don't respond then. You can always tell people, no matter when it is, if you're taken off guard and don't have the words, I'm going to need some time to decide how I feel about that.
Well, I want an answer now.
Well, that may be, but I'm going to need some time to process this and decide how I feel about it or what I think about it before I respond.
Well, I need your answer now.
Well, that might be, but I'm going to need some time to think about this and process the information before I decide how I feel about it or how I will respond.
Well, I need your answer now.
Well, And you just keep saying that. Now, there are many different situations in which that might not be appropriate, and there are many other responses where if you practice them, you will get used to and you will easily be able to use them to anything that someone says to you at any time so that you are always in the response mode. But it's always on your terms. Just like when people throw hot shots at you or insults at you, that's on their terms. You can respond on your terms. Now, these tactics here are going to be more offense to prevent us from further losing grip of our power at work. If you feel as though we've kind of moved into the defense mode and you're under attack at work, check out the Professional Communicator Self-Defense Kit. You will find a link to it in the description. If you want to learn more things to help you specifically defend against attacks, you will find that very useful. Another thing we can start doing, use tag questions. Tag questions, remember, are going to be things at the end of statements, such as, how do you feel about that? Don't you think? What do you think? Isn't it? Aren't we? And you can use them if you are answering somebody's question to then start asking more questions. So when you answer a question, don't forget to add the tag sometimes. For example, if somebody asks you,
how's that Jones project coming?
I should have it done for you by the end of the day. Is that what you were expecting? Or,
Hey, Dan, can you give us an update on the Jones project?
sure, it's going along just as scheduled and we should have it on your desk by the end of the day. Do you have any other questions on that? No one will ever notice that you are balancing out the scales that might have tipped. And number 3, remember that when you are contributing anything to any conversation at work, I should always know, what am I bringing to the table that is valuable? What is coming out of my mouth right now that will somehow give value to the people to whom I'm speaking? Remember, people who know the value of their words, who have normally the experience to know, oh my gosh, what I have learned is so valuable. What am I doing giving it to all of you for free? They start to zip it, and they only deliver those pearls where they believe they will get a return. We only throw away things that we do not value and snatch your power right back out of the hands of those toxic people who you've been giving it to for so long. So for more tips like this to help you increase your value, check out this video. I think you're really going to like it.